So I right away thought Roxon was going to win. And then the other thing, and I might have even said this first, is I go, somebody's going to annihilate themselves on that little triple thing after the finish line.
Yeah.
Because it was just that. And I thought it was going to come from the futures class, because an obstacle like that. So if for those listening, it was you'd hit the finish line jump, and then it was like this little setup pre-jump. It was almost like a double or a roller, and then into like a mini little skip across triple thing. The reason an obstacle like that is so dangerous is because it's easy to disrespect and to just try to wheelie it or push through it going Mach 5 for no reason, and to not take the time to kind of get in that pocket and to give your suspension the time to do what it needs to do.
Yes.
And it's usually those types of obstacles that are inviting, easy for everybody to do, but easy to not respect the way that you should, where the futures guys or the rookies, somebody like that, are the ones that bite the dust on an obstacle like that. Definitely. But I saw the crash literally exactly what Kitchen ended up doing. Exactly. And that he kind of like, it looked like Kitchen, and he's tall, so he is a guy that's probably like, ooh, I could gain a 1/10 of a second here and try to like wheelie it in a way and just push through.
Yeah.
And yep, sure enough, catches. I mean, that's a high speed. I'm just thankful that he looked like he hit his head hard. That was probably a pretty good concussion.
Yeah.
But the fact that nothing else happened, that's like a kill yourself, paralyze yourself type of crash. That high speed landing on his head the way he did with the bike kind of on top of him, like that's not a good way to crash.
Scary stuff. I think an obstacle like that would be a bit safer. Like, okay, if it was like, 30 feet out of a corner or even closer, something where the speeds are lower. But yeah, when you're going fast, especially the speeds that those guys were going, and after like a long, that's like the main long straight. So you're going fast already because that finish line jump's pretty big, and you're just wide open that whole time. I think that's where it gets a little dicey. And that crash kind of reminded me of the crash that Jet had. I forget what year it was. Anaheim chasing Ferrandis. I don't know if that was like
riding an endo type of
riding an endo almost, and then going over. And I think Jet's was a probably a bit like, I won't say safer, but it was a whoop section, and they kind of had a little bit of a break between the whoops and I think it was like a step up or something, a double
just
after.
A steep double into a
steep
corner,
double, exactly. So I think that's where Jets was a little bit on the safer side, but this one you're absolutely right. That's the kind of obstacle and the positioning on the track that we like. The aftermath, we usually, that's what makes us scared about the sport sometimes. That's one of the downfalls of moto, when you see stuff that could happen. So hoping Kitchen gets a speedy recovery, but that could have been so much worse, and that was a really scary place to crash.
Yeah, and that's the stuff too that I look at and I go, because I know we talk about me helicoptering in, rappelling down to get that championship in year 5 of the 250 class, but I watched some of the things, and it requires just that little bit of extra unnecessary risk sometimes. And that's the only question mark I have in my head of like, would I take that risk? I don't think that I would. Can it be done? And can you win without taking that risk? Yeah, probably. I don't know. I just see obstacles like that in the way that you have to attack them sometimes to just be up there with all the guys.
Yeah.
And it just makes me question whether I would want to race again.
Yeah, that stuff like that, I think it's tough, right? Because you get excited to get out there, but then those are the parts where you're like, man, I don't want to have to go through that. I don't want to have to subject myself to those things, those risks, like you said. Let me ask you this: is there a way to have attacked that jump as fast as Kitchen wanted to, but do it safely? Like, is there like a technique, or is there something that he could have done to still make up the time he wanted to, but do it in a safer way?
Yeah, well, first of all, that would be a section that you're up a gear taller than what you normally would be, because you
Yep.
want to pull through it sort of in the meat of the power, like tractoring through it. So
Mm-hmm.
fourth or fifth gear, like you're in a tall gear going through there. So maybe he could have been even one gear up from what he was, because it looked like just he hit in the worst possible spot to where it just kind of like it stopped him. And it stopped his bike, but his body kind of kept on going, which is what caused the endo the way it happened. Sexton was doing a really good job of that section where he would push through it extremely. Now, granted, he's on 450 power, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But he was able to keep the tires closer to the ground and just sort of like power through instead of trying to like loft up and wheelie over.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say yeah. You have to pick and choose your battles in a section like that. But there's such a fine line. And that's where when I watch it, selfishly thinking about myself, when I'm like, okay, I want to race again because it is so much fun. And I think it would be so helpful to so many people for me to do an experiment, like the experiment I want to do. But what type of risk tolerance do I have? And is it necessary to have a high risk tolerance? Or can you just be so calculated to where stuff like that isn't an issue? If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, you can do so on Spotify and Apple Music. If you want to send in your own video submission, you can join us in the Moto Academy family inside of the Moto Academy app by just going to themotoacademy.com. That's also where you can sign up for a class. Okay, guys, see you next episode.